babe. Damn, babe. Rolling gram after gram, I'm like, damn, baby. Damn, you drink so much, it's gonna be hard to hold it down, babe. Just come over, I'm like, all these fucking grams, babe. All these grams, babe. All these grams, babe. Fuck that drink and we can roll. Fuck that drink and we can roll. Fuck that drink and we can smoke. I get high, I'm on the moon.
Damn, son.
Fuck them when they come too soon. Let's sleep all day and do the same shit all over. You got so drunk, I mean so drunk you threw up all over. I held your hand, rolled these grams till you were sober. You slipped up and you told me that you love me. You don't love me, just love my company. Cause you can't love me, I'm not a human being. But you can jump up on this dick like a trampoline. This beat'll take you to another galaxy. I got all your naked pics up in my gallery. I'll never delete them, that make you mad at me. If we ever go our separate ways, that'd be sad to see. So I'ma close my eyes just in case you decide to leave. I hate being alone. Don't leave me all alone. Let's smoke. Rolling gram after gram, I'm like, damn, babe. Rolling gram after gram, I'm like, damn, baby. You drink so much, it's gonna be hard to hold it down, baby. Just come over, I'ma roll these fucking grams, baby. All these grams, baby. All these grams, baby. We can roll. Fuck that drink and we can roll. Fuck that drink and we can smoke. You get mad, you wanna argue. These grams take that stress off you. Take your clothes off too. Fuck your nigga, he a hoe. What we do, he ain't gotta know. He don't smoke it by the O. He talk too much, just let him go. You know, you deserve everything. I give you half of that. I can't commit, now I won't lie about that. I've been hurt too many times. Been hurt too much, so I stopped trying. Fuck them hoes, I don't love them. Fuck them hoes, I don't trust them. Young Grello, he so awkward, but y'all be acting, need an Oscar. Rolling gram after gram, I'm like, damn, babe. Rolling gram after gram, I'm like, damn, baby. You drink so much, it's gonna be hard to hold it down.
Damn, son.
Just come over, I'ma roll these fucking grams.
Damn.
All these grams, baby.
Damn.
All these grams, baby. Fuck that drink and we can roll. Fuck that drink and we can roll. Fuck that drink and we can smoke. All that time and the energy I invested. Let's just smoke up on my weed, it's the bestest. All that time and the energy I invested. Let's just smoke up on my weed, it's the bestest. It's the bestest. It's the bestest. It's the bestest. All these grams, baby. All these grams, baby.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
We the cartel.
Blue faces.
Slip and slide DJs.
Blue faces. Blue faces. Mr. Old School back. I'm buff from my time, I got my old school rap. In my color stains, I got my old school back. In the backseat is a whole tool bag. Turning up these bottles in the nightclub, bitch. Step on my shoes, it's not a fight club, bitch. If your homies running up, I got a right up, bitch.
We make capital, nigga. Mad capital life.
Gotta respect all the MCs in the game, especially some of the realest ones that's not with us now.
Downtown music.
West music.
Downtown music on the beat.
I gotta bring it back to that riding dirty with the niggas hating in the feds lurk. Feds lurk. Bring it back to that pouring up of the wood wheel with the sales church. And I'm still selling these hoes, man. And I'm trapping up in the dope game. And I swear that rock and I swear that bitch in the same block. You know it. Hey, if this can't blow good enough, just get pulled out like I do my cup. Candy pain promethazine. What pulled out like I do my cup. Candy pain promethazine. What pulled out like I do my cup. Candy pain promethazine. Where I'm at, where I'm riding clean. My 23s and they poking out. 84s and they smoking out like switch house like back then. 98 when I'm tracks in. Dropping in the colors with the mag 10. Make 5K a day, I'm relaxing. After relaxing, man. Getting in the zone like LeBron James. And I'm swinging these bitches like swing my chain. Walking with the look and they love my candy cane. I'm falling that look as I make it rain. When some fuck your bitch, she ain't never the same. I'm walking with a limp cause they love my candy cane. And I'm balling that liquors cause I always make it rain. When I'm fucking your bitch, she'll never be the same. I said once I fuck your bitch, she will never be the same.
West music.
Fire, Geeky, and Boom today. Capital, nigga. Mad Capital Life.
You listening to the hottest motherfucking mixtape on the Gold Coast.
Selling cocaine out of candy thing. Jeremy Lil Wayne got a trunk of banks. I'm a hot boy like a hot flame in my whole payment. It's like baby, that's the only way they can lay me. Niggas shoot slugs but they ain't grave me. They won't sweet on me just to make me. You throwing lazy, you can't fade me. That's the reason I knock you lady. How you gon' pimp when you pick up in her? I told the pimp guard that you was a sinner. You in the square hoes out to dinner. Your bitch chose me cause you want a winner. I mix her whole head up like a blender. Whole need a daddy, use up a tender. I used to be a young drug dealer. Now I'm a young drug stealer. I hit the streets like Steve Jackson. Niggas say my name, watch your bitch action. Sweet Jones or Sweet James. Switch my name, I'm 50 fuck the game. And niggas fell out with the rapper shit. Pussy nigga need to move up out the city. The game ready, but the bitch pretty. Let me slouch some white girl about the titty. You heard me right, we play what I know. That platinum pizza with the Gucci clothes. Came a dude, I ain't came to lose. I wear Marvin Black mink tennis shoes. In the winter time, mink coat to match and mink on the floor in my granny's mask.
Mad Capital Life.
All my cars got leather and wood. In my hood, they call it buck. Smoking eyes going up, putting big up.
Okay, so just type the job website address here. That's it. Then you enter what job you're looking for there.
Electrician.
This is Peter. Recently, he got help going on the internet for the first time to look for a new job.
Okay, then you just hit search and...
In the past, Peter's gotten work through people he knew, but he heard there were more jobs online.
There we go.
These are all for me?
Uh-huh.
Really?
He had no idea just how many.
I can't believe it. This one looks good.
Peter is thinking the internet might be for him after all.
And this is just one website.
Wow. Why didn't I do this sooner?
See what the internet can help you do at everyoneon.org or call 1-855-387-9166 to find a free training class near you. Brought to you by Connect to Compete and the Ad Council.
Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay. The deal that's been struck between the Greek Prime Minister Tsipras and the czars or leaders of the Eurozone has caused shock in Greece, disappointment, and some people relief. They're now going to get some more euros out of their banking machines. The Greek left, some are saying, well, that's what we expected. Others are in mourning, as one person told me. We're going to now go to Athens and talk to a young activist who's been lives in New York most of the time, but she's been in Greece for a while, and she's of Greek descent. Now joining us from Athens is Natina Vagontsis. She's a sociology PhD student at New York University, focusing on political economy and social movements. She's a member of the UAW Graduate Student Organizing Committee and involved in AKNY Greece Solidarity Movement in New York. Thanks very much for joining us, Natina.
Thanks for having me.
Now, just to sort of orient people, you're an activist, and your activism, one could say, is to the left of most of Syriza. Would that be correct?
That'd be correct. I've had a lot of my political education from activists in Andalusia, which is the anti-capitalist front to the left of Syriza, but that also shares, in terms of political strategy, quite a bit with the left platform. The difference is that they've remained independent of Syriza, and for quite some time they faced criticism actually from activists in the global left for doing that. But we might see actually that there's some merit to keeping independence, especially at this point when the government has capitulated to the demands of the Eurozone.
Right, and the left front being the left front that's within Syriza. So talk about the deal. What are the main points, and what do you think of it?
Yeah, so where to begin? I think one of the biggest concessions is this, kind of blasé-phrased ambitious primary surplus targets with the addition of quasi-automatic spending cuts. So what this means is that theoretically, if the Greek government doesn't meet the primary surplus target of 2% in 2016, or all the way to 3.5% in 2018, there are going to be instituted mechanisms for cutting further down on spending. And even the economics editor, I believe, of Reuters, or I'm sorry, I think it was The Guardian, said that this is just continuing a recessionary strategy.
Okay, just to make sure everybody got what you just said. So if they don't run a budgetary surplus of what the number was, 2% to begin, and then 3.5, you said?
1% in 2015, and then 2 and 3 in 2016 and 17, and then 3.5% in 2018.
And if they don't run that surplus, then these automatic cuts will kick in.
Exactly.
Which you're saying is a recipe for more recession.
Exactly.
One of the most controversial things that came up in the course of the negotiations was this $50 billion fund that would take Greek public assets and convert them into either privatization, or they say run some of them for the purposes of making money. But the money either way, and it seems mostly about privatization, would be 50% used to pay down the debt, 50% for reinvestment. It's not, I don't know, it's not entirely clear who's running that, but it seems it can't be the Greek government, or there wouldn't be any point of having some new structure because the Greek government already controls those assets. What do you make of that? And did you expect that to be a deal breaker?
Yeah, so the details of that are still very murky. This came out of nowhere for many of us. It wasn't included in the Juncker proposal that was rejected in the referendum. It came this week. And initially, the demand from the Eurozone was that these 50 billion euros worth of assets would be managed and sold off basically in Luxembourg in this mechanism called the Institution for Growth, which was actually set up several years ago under the New Democracy government, with also the assistance of the German Finance Minister Wolfgang Schäuble through a German bank on whose board he sits on. But it does seem, based on reports that came out, there was this one Financial Times piece that said that by 6 a.m., it seemed that, basically the German and Greek sides had reached an impasse, and had it not been for certain mediators, this might have been a deal breaker. And so at that point, these sleep-deprived leaders, went through 10 iterations of what this fund would actually look like. And for now, it seems that it's as you described. But again, we won't know what the final part is. But it really, to be added so late in the game, I interpreted it, to be honest, of course, there are very real material consequences to it. I think it's going to ensure fully the privatization of the Port of Piraeus. but more symbolically, it's adding humiliation to the defeat.
Because you have essentially some form of loss of sovereignty over how these Greek public assets are going to be disposed of.
Right, exactly.
The reaction, first of all, of people in your circles, describe, and what do you think generally public opinion?
Lots of disappointment, frustration, confusion over why the referendum was held if, at the end of the day, the government was going to concede. I think my interpretation of the past 5 months is that people were voting for an anti-austerity platform with, of course, the implicit concession that maybe they wouldn't be able to get everything that Syriza was calling for, especially with its Thessaloniki program, addressing the humanitarian crisis of 5 years of austerity. We would hear things like, okay, if they can get 5 of the 15 things that they're aiming for, we understand that this is a tough battle. And so as the negotiations were going on, as the Eurozone was applying, further pressure through liquidity asphyxiation, people thought that it was headed in that way. And I got here in late May. And, when you would ask people on the ground, a lot of the people who I talked to, and, this is mostly in working class neighborhoods, that's where I do my field work near the Port of Piraeus, they didn't want the government to go back. And, I'd also been in events where Syriza leadership was speaking, and they were being told, don't go back on your promises. And then, the officials would ask, well, what do you want us to do? And people would say, we want some form of confrontation or even, rupture, some people would say. And the government would say specifically, how do you see that? And some people, they would say, as much as it takes. I don't know, what concretely people were thinking when they were saying that, if they meant default, if it meant exit from the Eurozone. But, there was a sense that, people were still wanting the government to stay firm, though implicitly, again, I think that there was some understanding that, maybe they would make some concessions. The referendum, though, changed that. The referendum, when Tsipras was presented with this take it or leave it agreement and he left, and he took it to the Greek people, there was an understanding that he was going to continue fighting. But based on reports, even from the former finance minister Varoufakis, where he says that, he entered the prime minister's office after the resounding 62% no victory elated, and instead came to a very somber atmosphere, which meant that the government didn't want to go toward a more confrontational or ruptural scenario, that, in fact, they were going to capitulate. This isn't, I think, something that people were expecting.
What do you make of the reports that they were actually hoping for the yes vote to accept the proposals from the Eurozone? The government was actually hoping that side would win. It would make their life easier.
I don't know. There's a lot of speculation as to what exactly they wanted. I think that because the government was so persistent in a strategy that was exhausting itself very early on, and wasn't willing to consider a plan B, which would include anything from internal default within the Eurozone to exiting the monetary union, they, kept hoping that they would be able to create some kind of, disagreement within the ruling bloc of the Eurozone, specifically between the French and German ministers. And it could be that they thought that with this no victory, it was a tactic of desperation, of last resort. Maybe they would be able to get something. That's a very, of course, optimistic assessment. It could also be that, they were looking for a no that wasn't as strong, maybe 50 to 55%, that again, they could take to their partners and say, look, are you going to look at democracy in the face and not give us anything? It's hard to know what they actually wanted, but we do know that that night, And throughout that week, they were really willing to give up, essentially.
It seems a kind of naivete in a sense that they thought that because the Greek people expressed their will, that Eurozone leaders would care, and they certainly had made themselves clear that they didn't care, and Syriza was already elected, which reflected the will of the Greek people. So one wonders why if they really thought so, why the referendum would make any difference in the opinion of the Eurozone leaders.
Yeah, I mean, Varoufakis, in this interview that he gave, very revealing. In the New Statesman, he said, I think it was taken before the agreement was actually made earlier today. He said that at one point I asked my partners, why even hold elections in indebted countries? And they didn't even really give him an answer, which he interpreted as, good question.
You hold elections because you're sure you can control the outcome. When you have an election you haven't controlled the outcome of, I guess this is the answer to it.
Yeah, and you could say that when Syriza was elected in January 2015, there was a sense in at least the domestic ruling class that they could control the consequences of that outcome. I don't know if you remember, but there were some interviews made, by very, wealthy, influential people in the country, including, an energy oligarch, Mytilineos, and Bloomberg News, soon after the election results. And they asked him if he was concerned, and he said, no, this government might actually bring us the stability we're looking for, and then we're going to have, stable business conditions, better investment. It could be that they thought that people would be placated enough that they could get maybe some version of austerity light and continue with business as usual.
And one of the arguments that's being made is that this is as good as they could have done, that the Greek people weren't ready to leave the Eurozone. That no vote didn't represent a vote for leaving. It just represented a vote, as you said, to keep fighting. But there was no way to win this fight, and that it's better for this austerity plan in the final analysis to be managed by people like Syriza than managed by others. That seems to be the argument that's defending this situation, and that one's being overly critical if you think that Tsipras should have walked from these negotiations because there was simply nothing to walk to.
Yeah, I think that's a very tricky argument. And we can look at the final hours and we can agree that his options were quite constrained and his lack of preparation made it almost inevitable that he would agree to the terms that he ended up agreeing to. But if we look, at the Greek political process in a bit of a broader sense, if we think about the conditions under which Syriza emerged electorally as a fighting contender in 2012, those were times when, there was a sufficient level of insurgency on the ground. There was a level of conversation in Greek society as to what the options could have been moving forward. I understand the arguments that at that point, people weren't ready. They hadn't expressed their own will to leave the Eurozone. But I think, as you're a rising central political actor, you can start putting these arguments, just opening the conversation. And the leadership never wanted to open that conversation, even when they entered power, even as it seemed that their strategy was being exhausted. There's a very telling moment when in that interview with the New Statesman, Varoufakis says, look, we did take into account contingency measures, and we had a secret group of 5 people in January who were working on a plan B if it came to that. But the problem is that, one, you have to keep this secret, so it's difficult to expand it to an actually viable operation that's implemented by, say, 500 people in the country, if it were to be actually implemented. But then, and I can understand that argument, but then he kind of waffled and he said, and we didn't have a mandate for that, so of course we couldn't expand to the 500 people. And again, I think that you can pursue a strategy that might be with a common sense other people at that moment. You can say that we're going to try as hard as we can to negotiate and to remain within the Eurozone, but we must be prepared. And, the results of the February 20th deal showed that they weren't prepared. Varoufakis' own statements showed that they weren't prepared. I think the fact that they weren't prepared was more, out of their own strategic obstinance than, and, that could be easily justified over and over by popular will.
Well, from Varoufakis has written that, he was quite committed to the stabilization of European capitalism. And it seems, in the final analysis, seems pretty clear. It was naive to think they could have some rational, persuasive powers over European finance.
Right. I mean, I'm still going back to 2012 because I think that was a very critical period. I think European capital wasn't quite sure yet how they were going to handle the crisis. They felt under threat, and it's actually it's quite funny looking back in a tragic sense. The Wolfson Economic Prize, which is second to the Nobel Economic Prize, was won by a team of HSBC economists who actually drafted, as they called it, a practical guide for exiting the Eurozone. And they had a country like Greece, a weak member of the Eurozone, in mind when they drafted it. And at that same time, people like Lapavitsas were also arguing for those kinds of solutions, whereas Varoufakis was very committed to that. And again, in that interview with the New Statesman, he said that when he met Varoufakis, back in 2010, 11, when he met Tsipras, Tsipras himself wasn't, quite firm on the euro versus drachma position. So it might be that Varoufakis actually had quite of an influence on, not just Tsipras' own thinking, but the political strategy of his party. So again, I think it was a bit of a loose question at that point.
It seems to me the roots of this go back to the election campaign itself. That if Syriza had campaigned saying, we are going to do everything possible to achieve a dignified, reasonable, moderate deal within the Eurozone that we possibly can, but also say to the Greek people, but if it's impossible, we will create the mechanism to leave. And then if the truth is they couldn't get elected by saying that, if people were so freaked out at the thought of leaving the Eurozone that they wouldn't elected Syriza, well, isn't it better not to get elected then?
Yeah, I agree. When they were preparing to enter power, because that's really what that period, 2012 to 2015 was, they were visiting, many heads of state. They were visiting different types of think tanks, and their main message was, don't worry, we're not these crazy communists. We're not looking to shake up the whole system. We just have a very simple and reasonable message of anti-austerity. And so, they also went to the Brookings Institute. They went to bankers in London. And I just, and over the course of that time, their initial message back in 2012, which was no sacrifices for the euro, ended up, evolving into this, we're moderates. We want to stay in the Eurozone, adding, the Varoufakis flair. We want to actually, make the Eurozone better. We want to save capitalism from itself. And so it kind of spun into that narrative, which I agree, it set itself up for something that wasn't possible given the balance of forces in Europe at this time, which are quite right-wing.
One of your research studies is about the rise and growth of the right wing in Greece. The working class, to a large extent, voted against the Eurozone proposal. What do you think happens next with the Syriza? You would think a great disillusionment in what they promised. How will this affect the politics, and does it in any way strengthen the right?
Well, as you said in the beginning, there's a great sense of disappointment and frustration today in Athens, but I don't think the left feels fully defeated. And I think, this is in large part due to dissidents within Syriza and outside it. The week, is very young. The Parliament still has to pass the measures, which they're expected to do by Wednesday. And there have already been mobilizations called for them. The Public Sector Trade Union Confederation, ADEDI, held a meeting today. And this was a result of interventions by leftist unionists over the course of this period. And the result was the calling for a general strike on Wednesday. And it could happen even sooner if the measures are to be pushed sooner, but that's unlikely. So the big mobilizations are planned for Wednesday, and it's not just a general strike by public sector workers, but it's also being accompanied with rallies on the streets by civil society organizations, by unions, by neighborhood assemblies, by university and school students. So we'll see. There are always an array of social forces that are released in these kinds of moments, and we have to hope that the rest of the left is going to be able to preserve, the standing of the left with the Greek people. Because one thing that we should know during the week of what some people want to call the Ochi revolt, the no referendum week, was that there was, this sense that the left was starting to gain a certain kind of hegemony within the popular classes in Greece. And this was especially, epitomized by the Friday night rally at Syntagma when Tsipras was due to speak. And of course, that week, again, was a bit suspect for some of us who were watching events unfold, because at the start of the week, we saw that the leadership was starting to send proposals again to the Eurozone, and we were wondering, why call a referendum if you're starting to send proposals again? And this, what we hear, was due to some internal battles within the leadership. Anyway, those were resolved by Wednesday. And by Friday, Syriza was committed to getting a no result. And, at the same time, it hadn't done a lot of preparation to get people out on the street. And, I got there by metro, and I had to wait for 3 different metro cars to come because there were so many people pouring into it going to Syntagma. And once I got out, I could hear echoes of people chanting Ochi, Ochi. And once we got into the square, there were, people say over 100,000, maybe up to 200,000 people there. And it was a very different kind of demonstration than the kind that I've been to in Greece, which are usually against the government or against some other kind of government. This was a rally, a political rally in favor of the government. And, people were really cheering on Tsipras, not only Tsipras, other parts of the Syriza leadership, Zoe Kositopoulou, who's the president of parliament. And, just based on the people who I talked to there, and they all came from mainly, popular neighborhoods. And, I asked them if they were organized, and most people said they weren't. They just support the government in this difficult moment. So you could say that at that point, the left was starting to achieve, kind of the trust of people. And the worry is that it's going to lose it very quickly. Again, I think that there are parts of the left that can show that they are willing to fight against this new memorandum, because that's what it is, who are willing to continue to fight, to continue fighting against austerity. And we have to hope that, people are going to take note of those efforts. But again, of course, there is the specter of the far right. And the far right, of course, it's an anti-systemic force, it's a populist force, but at the same time, it's supported by quite a few interests, ranging from small to large capital. And you might think that at this point, various parts of the right, from the center to the far right, are going to try to take advantage of the situation. It's very fluid at this point. It's difficult to tell.
All right, thanks very much for joining us, Natina.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.
Message from
Starbright Entertainment. Hey, this is Damon Carter, Starbright Entertainment, Starbright Music South. Calling in the Vibes Live, saying happy 1 million viewers, happy 1 million listeners, happy global, internationally known Vibes Live. Shouts out to Miss Robin Lynn. Hey, you doing it big over there, sister girl. Do your thing. Make it do what it do. Alright? Signing off. 1 million listeners. Peace.
The man.
Love things about you. You got it going on. I'm not in love, and this is not a love song. But you've been down so long, it should've never went wrong. I know it's all my fault, my mind's been gone. I'm always on the chase, lipstick on my face. When I get home, you gotta get on my case, cause I've been fucking up. Coming home smelling like her, I